Super Bowl Sunday is today, and some really weird stuff happened yesterday with Kevin Durant. He doesn't start because he was supposedly within proximity of someone with the virus. Then he plays, and as the refs are reviewing his fifth foul and overturn it, he's told he has to leave for safety protocols. I swear, that's so weird and makes no sense to me whatsoever. It was a big win for the Raptors, although the Nets definitely got screwed because of this. And the NBA definitely needs to do a much better job because even though the bubble was so well done, and I understand doing a bubble for a whole season with all 30 teams is a lot harder to do than 3 months with 22 teams and then the playoffs with 16 teams, but still, the NBA really does need to do a lot better with this because right now, honestly, they are doing a terrible job. But you guys seem to love my baseball offseason videos, so that's what you're actually here for. So, what's going on? It's Nick, and before we begin, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I cover basketball, baseball, and football on this channel, but as I said, you guys seem to really love my MLB offseason videos, so I'll talk about that. And we got some big news yesterday, and I had to really think about this one. I didn't react to it that fast because of all the mixed reactions, so I had to really think this one through. My initial reaction was that this is a huge overpay, and I'm still kind of leaning towards that, but it's also not nearly as bad as some people are making it out to be based on what I've actually been researching and when I was coming up with what to talk about in this video. So before we begin, cue the intro. So I decided to watch some YouTube videos before I made my own and see what I can come up with, and I decided to look into both sides of the argument on whether this is a good deal for the Dodgers or not. So I watched Giraffe Mark's video, and I gotta say, he made some pretty good points. Now, whether you like him or not, talk to him, not to me, because I'm not trying to get into any YouTube beef myself, but you know what? I'm gonna give him some props, at least for now. I mean, I don't agree with everything he says, just to be clear, but for this one, I think that he actually did make some pretty valid points. So the first thing that he brought up is the narrative that he only pitched against bad teams to have that outstanding 2020 season. Yeah, look at this right here. Throw that narrative out the door. Not to mention, in that wild card game where he pitched 7 2/3 innings of shutout baseball against the Atlanta Braves, who made it to the NLCS. So yeah, the fact that Trevor Bauer was only pitching against garbage teams, yeah, that's completely false. So good job there, Mark. And also, we look at Trevor Bauer's 2019 season, and yes, his ERA, SIERA, and WHIP were really bad that year. But look at this game log right here. That was another good point Mark made. I'll give you some props for that, man. Even though his overall numbers were pretty bad, not his K rate, and looking at this, he went deep into games, and even though he had some games where he got absolutely shelled, he also had some games where he went deep into games and he pitched some shutouts. And with the K rate that he had, I would think that he was doing something right. Now, will Trevor Bauer repeat his masterful 2020 season? No, there's no way he's going to have an ERA under 2 for an entire 162 game season, and Giraffe Neck Mark agrees too. Yeah, like for a full season, there's just no way. Although, one thing though about that video, was he actually throwing harder last year than ever before? Because according to Fangraphs, no. Again, no hard feelings though, because I did give you some props on where you did some really good research, but just looking at Fangraphs here, it doesn't look like he really was throwing harder than ever before last year. He did have much better control though, walking just 6.1% of the batters that he faced. I don't think that's sustainable, but maybe around 7 to 8% is, and that would still be pretty good. I'll pull this up though. The difference in spin rate from just 1 year to the next year. Yeah, the difference in spin rate, there is definitely something fishy about this to me. He even said so himself about Garrett Cole when he went to the Astros, and you know he and Garrett Cole are not on the greatest terms. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention the ankle injury, and Fuzzy brought this up too. The 2019 season, Trevor Bauer pitched through an ankle injury, so obviously that did have to affect him. after that 2018 season where he was outstanding. We got to keep that in mind too when talking about his 2019 season. And yes, again, a lot of his numbers that season are really bad, but just not his K rate. And also when we look at his game log, he had some really good games in there. But could that have made that much of a difference in his RPM? And Trevor Bauer even said this himself. And Garrett Cole's increase in spin rate was not nearly as huge as Trevor Bauer's this season. Well, according to the Baseball Doesn't Exist video that I watched before recording this, I don't plan to actually look hard enough for that info because editing this video is already going to take long enough. But I'm just going to go with what that guy said, and you let me know if that's true or not. And by the way, don't take this as if I'm trying to fanboy Garrett Cole, because this was when Garrett Cole was an Astro, so I had no reason to fanboy him back then. If the MLB really does crack down on this, I guess we'll just have to see how much this really affects Trevor Bauer. But he is in a top class organization, so while using substances, that does undeniably give pitchers an advantage. We know he's not the only pitcher to ever do it. Just not every pitcher's as stupid about it as Michael Pineda. In my intros, you see me mashing in the batting cage, right? But I actually grew up as a pitcher. Makes me wonder, should I have used those substances, or you think I would have been caught red-handed? Kind of makes me wish I at least tried it, to be honest. Just, I can't make it so obvious. But hey, it is very possible that Trevor Bauer just does get better with age. He's 30 right now, and he was not good at all in his first 5 seasons. But hey, look at Max Scherzer, for example, or the great Sandy Koufax. Both of those guys are late bloomers, and you could probably find me more. You can let me know in the comments about another pitcher that was a late bloomer that I'm not thinking of right now. And again, of course, he's not going to have an ERA under 2 for a full 162 game season. I don't expect that out of any starting pitcher, although didn't Jacob deGrom do that in 2018? But you know that that's very rare for any starting pitcher to ever do that. But I do think at worst Trevor Bauer will be an above average pitcher, but just not worth $40 million this year or $45 million next year. Yeah, I know the lighting's a little different because I had to fix a mistake just now, but either way, I think that he will upgrade the Dodgers starting rotation. Not to mention the Dodgers are going to have David Price at the end of their rotation, and trust me, as a Yankees fan, I loved clowning on David Price for how much the Yankees used to mash against him when he was on the Red Sox, but I'm also not going to get carried away. While yes, his tenure in Boston, outside of overcoming that burden as a playoff choker, his reputation, I should say, outside of the ALDS, sure, he did not live up to his contract in Boston, but while yes, he's overpaid still, he is definitely much better than your average back end of the rotation guy. So the Dodgers starting pitching is definitely going to get better. I mean, it was going to get better with the addition of David Price this year, but now, like, I really can't think of a better starting rotation. As much as I've been lauding what the Yankees have done this offseason, yeah, I got to give it to the Dodgers right now for best starting rotation. Even though the Yankees do have Garrett Cole, and he's probably a top 2 at worst starting pitcher right now. Yeah, in terms of depth, yeah, I unfortunately have to give it to the Dodgers. But even if Trevor Bauer is that Cy Young caliber pitcher with the Dodgers, there's definitely some risk in this contract. They're definitely not re-signing Justin Turner this offseason. They're not going to be able to afford to because they have contracts like this one, Mookie Betts, Clayton Kershaw, David Price, and you name it. And next year, they're probably not going to be able to re-sign Corey Seager. In fact, I really doubt they will, unless Corey Seager has a really subpar 2021 season. But Justin Turner is 36 years old now, and has he showed signs of slowing down? No, not yet, but we know that's going to come eventually. And also the Dodgers already lost Kike Hernandez, but I don't think they'll really suffer from that. I mean, sure, he's great at defense, but he hasn't hit well the last 2 years. And Chris Taylor is someone that the Dodgers can plug in at second or third base. It's nice to know that Chris Taylor is as versatile as he is. He can even play shortstop or in the outfield. Although he's a free agent after this year as well. And if he goes off this year, then yeah, say goodbye to him as well. Because obviously he'll ask for too big of a payday than what the Dodgers can give him. Edwin Rios had a strange 2020 season. His traditional stats were bad, but he also had a 145 WRC plus in 2020. we'll see what he can do in 2021, but just some ideas for how to replace Justin Turner, because they already went all in on Trevor Bauer. But because they're not re-signing Turner, their offense will take a slight hit, but I think their starting pitching is going to be significantly better unless Trevor Bauer falls off a cliff because he can't cheat anymore. I don't think he'll fall off a cliff though, but we'll see. But perhaps it will be worth the trade-off at least this year. And another thing that reduces the risk of this move is that it's not a long-term deal that the Dodgers signed him to. It's only for 3 years, and Trevor Bauer can opt out after the end of each year. I don't expect him to opt out after this year, obviously. And after next season, though, we can expect him to opt out and ask for a bigger payday as long as he still pitches in an elite level, because in the 3rd year, he's only supposed to make $17 million, and yeah, he shouldn't settle for that unless he has a major injury this year or next year that really sets him back. I know Trevor Bauer grew up a Dodgers fan. Now he gets to make bank for the team he grew up loving, much like Garrett Cole with the Yankees. Even though Garrett Cole's a much better pitcher, don't at me. But hey, Trevor Bauer's living the dream. Great for him. And as we know, Trevor Bauer is someone who really likes to market himself, and LA is perfect for that. And there may even be a chance that he stumbles upon this video. I don't know if he will. I don't think I have enough subs for that, but in case he does, Trevor Bauer, I wish you well, except for when you pitch against the Yankees. And hey, for the money you're making, I'm definitely happy for you, just so you know. Now for Mets fans who seem to have been trolled because you thought you were getting Trevor Bauer, I actually wouldn't be that upset. I mean, sure, having him with Jacob deGrom and Carlos Carrasco, a trio like that sure would be nice, plus Noah Syndergaard and Marcus Stroman, back end of the rotation, and also Joey Lucchesi. Yeah, that would be a sick rotation, but your starting rotation is already really good as it is. And yes, I know Marcus Stroman's a pretty sensitive guy, but like I said in my Francisco Lindor video, having him at shortstop, knowing that Stroman is a ground ball pitcher, that should significantly benefit Marcus Stroman. And also that boatload of money that the Dodgers just spent, the Mets can use that to extend the guys that are already on their team, much like with the money that the Blue Jays spent on George Springer. So it's not the end of the world for you guys, even though I can understand why you guys would be bummed. And also, yeah, for your ex-manager who was arguably the worst manager ever, he's also a pervert. Being arguably the worst manager wasn't bad enough. I know that's irrelevant, but just wanted to throw that in. So my verdict on this, I still think it is an overpay, but it might not be a bad one. And it was an overpay that we all fully expected to happen. Or maybe some don't view it as an overpay, but we knew he was going to make bank this offseason. And we definitely shouldn't just rely on the stats, even the advanced analytics. We shouldn't just rely on that, because that 2019 season, we also have to remember that he pitched through an injury, and looking at his game log, he had some really good games, not just bad. Although, I'm still not 100% sold that he's even the best pitcher on his own team. I definitely don't view him as someone who should make more than Jacob deGrom or Garrett Cole in a season. But again, he had every right to ask for a big payday because he just won the Cy Young Award. Sure, in a 60-game season, but he won the Cy Young Award nonetheless. And if we just saw the beginning of Max Scherzer's decline in 2020, then okay, Trevor Bauer might be better than him. But if that wasn't the beginning of Max Scherzer's decline, then yeah, I wouldn't take Trevor Bauer over Max Scherzer. Scherzer still did go deep into games in 2020 and still maintained a high K rate. And I'm also not so convinced that Trevor Bauer is better than Shane Bieber, but I do still think that he is a better pitcher than a lot of people give him credit for. Because let's not forget how good he was in 2018, and then the fact that he had to pitch through an injury in 2019. But a trio of Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, and Trevor Bauer, with guys like Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, and David Price at the back end of the rotation, yeah, that's absolutely disgusting what the Dodgers have in their starting pitching rotation. If the Dodgers repeat this year, then it's absolutely 100% worth the overpay. And in the long term, as long as the Dodgers play their cards right in replacing the guys that they're not going to be able to re-sign because of this, then yeah, it's definitely worth the overpay. If my Yankees lose to them in in the World Series, I guess I can't be that mad. I just want the Yankees to make the World Series at this point. It's all I can really ask for now. 2017 was fun because the Yankees were underdogs with low expectations going into the season. I actually predicted they'd be the second wild card that year, while most people thought that they'd be a fourth place team. And they even exceeded my expectations by a mile, and I did not imagine them being one game away from the World Series only to run into those cheaters. But now, there's no more excuses for not making the World Series anymore. 3 years in a row of coming up short in the playoffs, yeah, no longer excusable. So as long as the Yankees make the World Series, I'll be happy. Even if they lose to the Dodgers, because the Dodgers rotation really is disgusting right now. And okay, I'm sorry, I did not mean to go on this long, but yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking with me. That's the end of this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you next time. Oh yeah, and also enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday.